comedian, a healthcare leader, a theater composer, and a real estate agent walk into a bar. That's not a setup to a joke, that's the setup to this next episode of My Real Portland. I'm My Real Portland host, Joseph Lyons. I am so grateful you've tuned in, and you're about to meet three amazing Portland originals: a comedian, a healthcare leader, and a musician. Each My Real Portland episode features amazing artists and performers from all around the city. I'll ask them each the Fast Five, and then I'll throw in a game show on top of it all for a fun night out with friends, German food, and beer. Tonight's episode was recorded live at Portland's Jade Lounge next to the Slide Inn at 23rd and Ankeny on very hot and smoky August 14th, 2018. Our next show is Tuesday, September 11th at 7 p.m. Happy hour is at 6:30. Speaking of Portland originals, this show is produced by myself, Joseph Lyons, Portland realtor helping home buyers and sellers make their real dreams become real estate. Putting this show together is my real dream, and I support this fun hobby with my professional day job in real estate. And my career is all word of mouth, so please tell others you know of My Real Portland, the realtor, Joseph Lyons. That's josephlyons.com. And now, on with the show.
It's always been home, I've always been here, I've always got time for one more beer. So pick up a beer and pull up a chair and strike up the band. It's My Real Portland.
Hello, and welcome to My Real Portland, coming to you live from the verdant Iridescent Shade Lounge at 23rd and Southeast Ankeny in my hometown, Portland, Oregon. This is My Real Portland, highlighting real people and real stories from all around the area. I'm your host, Joseph Lyons, and I've got a great show lined up for you this evening, including the dynamic and powerful singer, songwriter, and composer, Jana Losey Crenshaw. And helping people thrive with Parkinson's through her work with the Michael J. Fox Foundation and now with the Brian Grant Foundation right here in Portland, it's Katrina Kahl. And from Helium Comedy Club, San Francisco Sketchfest, it's one of Portland's geniuses of comedy, Nguyen. All right, we are on day 28 of 90-degree weather or more here in Portland. And tomorrow we'll match that record with 29 days that we set back in 2015. And match might not be the right word to use because everything is just dry out there. So here's a segue, speaking of dry. Regional wildfires have Portland engulfed in smoke again today that we've all been walking through and driving through today. The smoke has come from the Klondike fire around the Grants Pass area as well as Canada and California. My family's hometowns on the Columbia River of Biggs and Rufus have both had full evacuations at some point this year. And air quality is in unhealthy levels around Portland. Before the show, I went on a walk to take care of some of my nerves, and I went on a walk around Mount Tabor, and with all the smoke, I think I caught about 3 more respiratory diseases. That was a joke. Thank you. A little pandering there. Okay, so here's another bad segue. E-scooters. So what do you all think of these e-scooters? Right. Okay, so this isn't just a Portland thing. It's happening all over big cities, all across the nation. There's reports that they're being dumped in the San Francisco Bay or the Hudson River in New York. And so far, there's only been one report of one being dumped in the Willamette River. But also, along with the e-scooters, I mean, Friday, there was a woman coming off of I-84, almost hit a guy on 122nd. On Monday night, just last night, there was 2 people trying to rent 2 e-scooters at Southwest Pine and 3rd that were hit by a drunk driver as they were trying to rent these e-scooters. So it looks like everyone is enjoying the e-scooters, but I think next year we need to do something a little bit more along those e-scooters. So here are 5 new scooter ideas that we can bring to Portland soon. So 1, the D-scooter. This is a device used to successfully dismount from an e-scooter. We've got, related to the D-scooter, the T-scooter, a scooter but with training wheels for toddlers. And then there's the P-scooter. This one's a little different. This one's a scooter with urinals, so there's always a place to go to the bathroom. There's the scooter, which is everything normal about a regular scooter, but you dress up as a Muppet and ride around on it. You all know scooter, right? Okay, and finally the unscooter, when you just save your money, put it in the pocket, and you just walk to the place where you're going. Okay, so a couple of programming notes. September 11th, country and blues singer, songwriter Nicole Podolsky will be here. And on October 9th, I'll have Charmian Kriegel and the Reformers Theater to talk about their fall show, as well as on October 9th, I'll have Jonah Wilbach. He's the founder of Portland's Chicken Beauty Contest that was just in Lents this last weekend. And he's an old friend from Portland decades ago, and he'll be with his band here with his band Post-War Audio. Post-War Radio. And the good thing about a podcast is I can just edit that out and no one will ever know the difference. We can skip that now. Okay, and for all the home listeners, of course, and for all of you here, be sure to subscribe to My Real Portland, because I will be doing a couple of special series of shorter podcasts with former Portlandians, including Will Weigler. He's a theater director who's moved to Victoria, Canada. And I worked with him in 1991, co-writing a musical with him and Matt Bronger, of all people. I'll be interviewing Marta Weiskopf. She's the daughter of the Portland Opera, and her mother was also an opera singer in Portland in the 50s and 60s. Marta also used to do Portland Victorian caroling around town back in the 80s, so she's got some really fun stories. And then I'll also be interviewing Lanny Swerdlow. He was the owner and operator of the City nightclub, the gay nightclub that I used to go to when I was a kid. But strangely enough, he was also a friend of my dad's, and now he lives in LA, and he's a gay rights activist and a marijuana rights activist. So we'll be doing some special podcasts with him, and he'll be on the show later. Okay, so now it's time for the real show. My first guest is a comedian, sketchwriter, improver, and actress, and I just found out a teacher at Roosevelt High School. Katie's performed with Bridgetown Comedy Festival's San Francisco Sketchfest, opened for Matt Bronger, and Ron Funches performed with the Brody Theater Ensemble and teaches at Deep End Theater, and she's the co-host of Earthquake Hurricane, one of Portland, and she's one of Portland Mercury's undisputable geniuses of comedy. Please welcome to the My Real Portland comedian Katie Nguyen.
Hello, how are you all? Good. That's important to me. Just mentioned I work with kids. I work with teenagers specifically. I really love working with teenagers. They're at this really magical stage in life where they're finally starting to learn more and explore the world around them and how things work, issues like politics and religion and sex. But they're still so young, they just lack the necessary life experience to understand how nuanced and complicated and related everything is, right? So they think they finally have it all figured out, and they still have no idea. And this was really beautifully evidenced in class one day. I was talking to the students. I'm a Spanish teacher, and it came up the fact that nobody ever assumes that I speak Spanish because of how I look and racism. And they asked me, and they're like, has anybody ever talked about you in Spanish around you and assumed you didn't know what they were saying? I was like, yeah, that's happened a handful of times. And they got super excited. They were like, what'd they say? And I wasn't going to quote verbatim, so I just said, just some of the crude stuff that some men like to say about women. And at this point, this 14-year-old boy who had not been paying attention at all before that point, all of a sudden his little ears kind of like prick up, and he looks up, and he gets this grin of like recognition on his face, like, I know this. And he says out loud very confidently to the entire class, he goes, talking about wieners, right? Which was adorable. It was so cute. Like, he understood enough about the situation to understand that kind of situation. We objectify people, right? We talk about people's bodies. We focus on the reproductive organs. Like, he knew all that. He just didn't know that, like, typically in that kind of situation, you're not, like, talking about your own. Like, that part he hadn't figured out yet. And I'm trying to imagine what this 14-year-old boy thinks grown men say about their wieners when they're talking about a woman. And, like, the only thing I can think of is maybe two dudes are on a sidewalk, right? Like, a woman walks by, right? And they both notice her, and they start elbowing each other. And they look at each other, and one of them says to the other, he goes, did your wiener move? Because my wiener totally moved. Put her there. That's how men talk, right? I see you. Something kind of personal about me is the fact that I'm a very, very sweaty and oily person. Yeah, and I spend a lot of time and energy trying to not look so sweaty and oily, like a lot. But you know, the media just tries to make you want what you don't have, right? Like, you have curly hair, you want straight hair. If you have one skin tone, you want another skin tone. Well, I found out that there is this look being marketed by cosmetics companies, and you may have seen this, and it is called looking dewy. Have you seen this? This is a thing. If you don't know what looking dewy is essentially looking kind of sweaty and oily. Yeah, which is great for me. But it's got me thinking, though, you know, because there's a lot of beauty standards that I think I understand and the implications they might have if you see them. For example, if a woman's wearing high heels, her legs will look elongated. You might be like, oh, maybe she's like a dancer or something. You know, and she's like really flexible, you know, like in bed. Right? Or she's got like the smoky eye look going on. You might be like, oh, maybe she's like exotic or something. You know, and she's like extra sensual, you know, like in bed. But if she's looking dewy, I just got to be like, oh, maybe she like passed out on the lawn last night in bed. I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense to me. There's this other newer beauty standard. I'm sure many have heard of it. It's very famous by now. It's called the thigh gap. Have you heard of this? The thigh gap? It's got its own Wikipedia page. Yeah. It's more successful than I am. If you've never heard of the thigh gap, it's this thing where, like, basically, like, if you put your feet together and you have a hole right here, that's supposed to be really pretty. Right there. You got a hole there. You're hot. Hot spot for hole. Them's the rules. You got a hole there. You're hot. Hot spot for hole. That's how it works. That's a thigh gap. I like how I look. I don't have a thigh gap, but don't worry. I do have several mysterious dents in my skull. It's kind of like the same thing, right? Thigh gap, skull dent, thigh gap, skull dent. Just missing flesh where there normally is some. Feels really good. Have you ever held a Smarties candy between your thumb and index finger just because it feels perfect? Yeah, it's kind of like that. This guy knows. She missed out. Something I see people talk a lot about lately on social media and elsewhere is imposter syndrome. If you're not familiar with imposter syndrome, it's when you feel like you don't deserve the things you have. You shouldn't have been given the responsibilities you've been given. You're a fraud. People are going to find out at any moment. Clap your hands if you felt any degree of imposter syndrome at any point throughout your life. Right. I'd say it's a fairly universal experience. And I would say I've experienced imposter syndrome on a lot of different occasions, in different contexts, to different degrees, you know, like in relationships, at work, writing TriMet. But I would also say that I've never experienced imposter syndrome so strongly and never feel it so intensely as when I am trying to open something that is childproof. Do you get this? You see something that's childproof, you're like, I got this. Definitely not a child, been a while. You start trying to open it, you realize immediately you can't open this. That's kind of weird. That's kind of weird, right? That you can't open this thing, and it's childproof, and Katie knows it's childproof, and you're getting a little nervous. Like, so what if you're looking right this, you can't open this childproof thing, because that would be really embarrassing. You start trying harder, and you think, maybe I'll use my palm, because surely my palm is an adult-sized palm. You start pushing with all your might. You're getting really sweaty, because people are going to notice at any moment, and maybe your might is not enough to open this thing, and maybe people are going to realize at any moment that you're actually still a baby, and that's why you can't open this childproof thing. You guys ever get that? That's a fairly universal experience, I hope. I heard these two pop songs on the radio recently. They're entirely different songs, but I found the lyrics interesting in the same way. The first song, this woman's repeating over and over again throughout the entire song. She's going, I'm a cool girl, I'm a cool girl. And I was like, sure. Sure, that's a good song. But then I heard this other song by Rihanna that got really famous, and I'm sure many have heard it. It's just her repeating over and over again throughout the entire song. She's singing, she's going, sex with me is so amazing. And I was like, I didn't know we could do that. Right, like I had no idea we could just write and sing songs simply of what we want other people to think about us and make like a ton of money off of it. And I've thought about it a lot, and I've developed some new career goals, and I've been working really hard, and I've written a bunch of songs, and I think I might actually be kind of good at it. I actually have a few songs I'd like to share with you tonight, if that's cool. Okay, thanks. I just need like 100% honest feedback because I really think this could be a new path for me. Okay, so the first song I wrote, it goes like this. Look at me, I'm 6 feet tall. Look at me, I'm 6 feet tall. Look at me, I can see the top of the fridge. I totally know what's up there. Yeah, I do so much stuff. Thank you. Okay, that's just one song. I wrote. I have this other song. This song's kind of more kind of a club kind of dance beat. Some of you might enjoy this more. And it goes like this. I never ever eat food off the floor. Never ever eat food off the floor. I never ever eat food off the floor. Never ever eat food off the floor. Never ever. Thank you. Thank you. Like I said, I think I might be kind of good at this. I actually have another song. I know, I'm like a factory. And this song is really personal, so it was really hard for me to write it. And I hope you can appreciate it. And it goes like this. I totally don't still think about that time in 5th grade when my crush Ben Grady said I had a mustache. I totally don't still think about the time. 5th grade when my crush Ben Grady said, that song's called Fuck You, Ben Grady. You guys are wonderful. That's my time for tonight. Thank you so much.
Hey, let's hear it one more time for Katie Nguyen. Thank you, Katie. Oh my gosh. Katie, I apologize for my phone going off. I had set my time so I could give you be all professional and give you a light, and then I totally forgot about it and the phone just started beeping. I apologize for that.
No worries.
So speaking of imposter, because I had that little error, I feel like an imposter right now that I really can't host a show because my phone just went off and interrupted you. I apologize.
No. Happens to the best.
I'm kidding. Okay, so this is my first question for you. What's your real Portland story? What's your origin story?
My origin story.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Minnesota to Vietnamese immigrants. Moved out here, got offered a job, and had never been here before, and it was a job, not a career kind of thing. And when I went to college, I went with all my friends from high school, so I never had that experience of moving to a new place and actually starting from scratch. I figured it was the time to do so. It was right after college.
So how long have you been here?
7.5 years.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so how long have you been teaching here in town, by the way?
I will be starting.
And we won't talk about that anymore after this.
As a classroom teacher, I'll be starting my 4th year this fall in a couple weeks. Thank you.
That's really awesome.
Thank you.
So how long have you been performing comedy?
Yes, in the fall it will be 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you started comedy then out here in Portland. You didn't do comedy.
Yeah, I'm definitely a Portland comic.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you doing improv before that? Were you doing other things besides, or is everything comedy just kind of started out here?
I started them at the same time. I didn't plan on becoming a performer. I generally don't like attention. I try to be very inconspicuous when I'm in public. But I had a 9-to-5 corporate cubicle job, and I had evenings free, and I took some classes just for brain exercise, just go out and meet people, and they went really well.
Yeah.
So I just kept going, and I ended up performing.
I love that story. That is fantastic, actually. I know many people who have moved here specifically to try to get into the comedy scene here in Portland.
The scene is thriving here.
And so to just have it naturally occurring is so great. So how much has changed for you now that you've been named one of Portland's geniuses of comedy?
I actually was named a Genius of Comedy 2 years ago as well.
Yeah.
The first time they did it. It's been really nice. It's nice to get to share with other people. I mean, I'm not I have a day job. I'm not scraping by. So it's just really the best part of comedy for me is the straight up, making people laugh. So usually when a big event like that happens that gets advertised with the Mercury, you get a lot of new audiences. It's not people who go to comedy shows every week at their neighborhood bar or club or something like that. So it's nice to expose people to live comedy who don't get to enjoy it very often, because I think most people find out they really enjoy it just the stereotype is that there's like some cheesy, like bad improv, like that's live comedy, or like some offensive, like stand up or something like that. But this show should be really great. I'm excited.
So when you started comedy, did you feel good at it? Did it feel like something that you needed to do, or what was the feeling? How did you know that this is what you wanted to do?
I feel pretty fortunate. My first experiences were very positive. I got positive feedback and responses. Audiences here are really great. I had been writing for a really long time before I started doing performing comedy. So I had a lot of comments when I first started doing stand-up were that you really have like a relatively just established voice. And I was like, yeah, well, I've been writing for 10 years, like supposedly for my own voice. I started a blog when I was 14, 2012. Yeah.
Oh my God. Doing the math, I can't do that. So
original Blogspot.
Do you still have that going?
It exists out there.
Do you know your password?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I maintained that thing for 10 years. That was like my creative outlet for my entire adolescence and early adulthood.
Wow.
And then it just translated to the stage very easily.
Well, so speaking of translating to stage and other things that you've done, your life, you've translated a little bit of your life to song. A lot of comics want to translate their life into a sitcom. Have you thought about what your sitcom would be?
Well, I mean, I'm a high school teacher who does stand-up comedy by night.
I mean, it's writing itself almost, right?
Yeah, there's an interesting, people always ask if I talk about my students or if I talk about my family, because my family's kind of nutty too. There are such funny moments throughout it, but it's like serious. I don't know. Like I take my job very seriously. Like I could make fun of the students. I think it'd need to be done in a very careful way. Like the joke earlier I told tonight was like I had to explain like, oh, it's cute because like he understood this part, but he didn't understand the other. It wasn't like kids are so dumb, which like a lot of people like to do. It's an easy way to talk about kids. For a lot of people, not for me.
That's very kind and compassionate. Compassionate comedy. There must be a space for that. So you're on Twitter as KT Nuggins, and so all of you should be following her because she's got some hilarious tweets, and I have some.
Your faces.
And I've got some of them right here, and I thought we would just take go back and forth and read some of these tweets here because I just think they're fantastic. So I'm going to read this first one here. I just looked up all of the different types of French fries and found a list that ranked waffle fries #1. Further proof that the internet is just a bunch of instigating trolls using an anonymity to post fake news and incite outrage. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, waffle fries suck. Yes.
So what's that next one?
For me to read it? Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know, that's hard.
When you're a kid, you think you're a Tigger or a Pooh or even a Piglet, and that rabbit's an irritable old buzzkill. But then you grow up, look in the mirror one day, and realize that you're definitely Rabbit.
I mean, that's definitely me. Okay, I really like this one, and you actually referred to this earlier today. My thighs have been talking, and I've come to a few new conclusions. They like when I remember to lotion them, and they're okay with me playing them like bongos. And when it's 90 degrees, there can only be one, and they will fight each other to the death.
I feel it every day.
And I like this last one. So we're in a German restaurant. The Slide Inn is right next to us. Very related to this last tweet of yours.
If you can't handle me at my Wurst, you don't deserve me at my kielbasa.
See, right?
That was a late night. Yeah,
it's a sausage joke.
Did not expect to have to read this on stage.
Okay, so let's do some plugs. People can follow you online on Twitter at KT Nuggins. Where else? Where else can people see you?
Also on Instagram. My website is katie-win.com. For the lovely people in the audience, I have business cards with my face on them if you'd like a photo of me.
Ooh, I would like one.
Yes. Yeah, and every Thursday at Ford Food and Drink at 8 p.m., I co-run a show with some of my favorite comics in town called Earthquake Hurricane. It's free every Thursday, 8 p.m. Ew.
Awesome. All right, that sound means it's time for the Fast Five. Katie, are you ready for tonight's Fast Five questions?
Sure.
All right, so what is your favorite month to enjoy Portland?
Maybe September.
Okay, so not August. Willamette River, just for bridge crossings, or go ahead and jump in?
depends on where in the Willamette.
Mm-hmm.
I would go upstream from Portland.
Like how upstream? Headwaters?
Yeah.
South of Eugene?
Yeah, I've kayaked in some of the flowage. It's not
I mean,
pretty.
I know that it's not supposed to be, the combined overflow and all that kind of stuff, but I still just can't get the pictures out of my mind of the Willamette River. What's your favorite Portland theater to see movies in?
I see maybe one movie a year.
Right, I know.
Lloyd Center's closest to my house.
Okay. Is there still a Lloyd Center? Yeah, I know that they're doing a bunch of work over there. Okay, so which one of these things do you miss most about Portland? Now, this one might be a challenging one for you because you've been here for 7 years. Okay, so being able to hike Eagle Creek in the Gorge, being able to eat at Machismo Mouse, being able to shop at the Big Bang, which I know you won't know that one, or the Clyde Drexler era of the Portland Trail Blazers.
The only thing I've experienced is Eagle Creek.
Yeah. Have you done Eagle Creek?
Yeah.
I am missing it like mad this year. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I feel that whenever that comes up, I feel bad for the kid who did it, to be honest. So I'm on the wrong side of history.
I am so torn. Okay, short story. Years ago, I used to be the president of the Friends of Lone Fir Cemetery, which is just right across over here. And the reason why we started was there was 50 headstones that were damaged on Memorial Day of 2000. And they found the two kids who had done the damage sleeping under a tree the next morning. The cemetery manager did. So a judge required them to go out and do community service in the cemetery. Guess who got to show them how to do that community service?
Oh,
me.
How was that?
And it was a really amazing, transformative experience. And as angry as I am at that kid, I feel the same kind of compassion and understanding. And it's, yeah. Okay, so here's my last question for you. What show would you watch first? Real Housewives of the Pearl District or MTV's Real World shot in Gresham?
Gresham Real World, for sure. I don't have access to the daily life in Gresham. I'm sure that'd be fascinating. I grew up in the burbs. Yeah, the burbs, there's something about them.
There's something about the burbs.
Yeah.
Hey, that could be your sitcom title. Okay, one more time for Katie Nguyen.
Thank you.
Okay, so my next guest is a fellow graduate of Portland's David Douglas High School. Go Scots! Katrina then graduated from PSU and then on to earn a master's in public health from UC Berkeley. She's worked for the Michael J. Fox Foundation and National Psoriasis Foundation, and after serving 5 years on its board of directors, Katrina began her position as executive director of the Brian Grant Foundation in spring 2016. Please welcome to the stage Katrina Kahl.
Thanks for having me.
So that was Katrina and the Waves, by the way.
Yes, I know that one well.
Okay, so first things first, do you remember, speaking of songs, do you remember the David Douglas High School fight song?
I do.
Isn't that sad?
It's pathetic.
Can I tell you, my mom and all of my aunts went to David Douglas, and I had totally forgotten about the fight song. My mom passed away in October. Her service was in June, and so I just saw all of my aunts at the cemetery, and we're all just sitting around, and all of a sudden we all start out in the David Douglas fight song. All 5 of us graduates. It was really bizarre. We won't do it here for everyone.
We'll spare you. We'll spare you.
There you go.
Much later.
So how did your work in nonprofit charitable organizations begin?
You know, I think I just grew up in a part of town where people cared about one another, and I fell into it pretty easily. I started off working with kids in East Portland and an organization called Serendipity Center that works with alternative youth, and kind of never looked back. I just stayed in college, kept working for different nonprofits, and at some point in time realized I really loved health and science, and so that's where I turned my attention. So.
Mm-hmm. And then you took that and went down to Berkeley and got your master's in public health from UC Berkeley, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I got my degree in biology first off, and I thought I'd be a research scientist, and realized I do not have the personality to be a research scientist. So I spent a few years figuring out different nonprofit work, and finally realized public health had a lot of variety, and it touches a lot of people's lives. And so I went to Berkeley and had a great time at Berkeley. It's a nice place to live. It's a good place to live.
So, and that was, when did you graduate from there?
I graduated from there in 2005. So I took a little break in between my undergrad and my graduate degree. I lived in London for a few years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, had a great time there. Taught science at a college there. And
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I haven't seen Katrina until today, since June 1992. And it's not like we were the best of friends or anything like that. So getting caught up on this, like, it's really that brand new.
Yeah.
So London for a couple of years.
A few years in London.
So what took you to London?
I just was one of those people who got on a plane to go to Europe and just didn't come back. And I think my parents just kept asking when I was coming home. And I finally, after years of teaching science in London and learning a lot about the different healthcare systems in the world and how different people approach health and topics around health, I was so interested in public health. So I applied to school at Berkeley, and when I got in, I wanted to come home. I'm a West Coaster. I learned that quick. And then I relearned it when I went to New York City, but I learned that really quickly. And just when I was in Berkeley, had a really good time there too. And I worked for the Alameda County Public Health Department while I was there, and in the Oakland high schools. And that was, so that was a really awesome experience as well. And, really just eye-opening as to how different people live and the resilience of the human spirit.
Okay, so we grew up in the same area of Portland. Like, where I grew up, it was technically East County when I was a kid, because it wasn't either Portland or Gresham, if you can imagine that. Same thing for you, right?
Yep.
So what was it about that upbringing, do you think, that what helped from that situation prepare you for being in New York and Berkeley and London? Or do you think it was harder coming from a less metropolitan place? I don't know. What's your experience about that?
Yeah, I think the common thread for people who grew up where we grew up at a time when we grew up is that we really were resourceful kids, and you learn how to make something out of nothing, and how to meet people, and how to just get your feet on the ground, wake up and go. And I think that's all it really takes. Doesn't matter if it's a small place you live or a big place you live, as long as you have the eagerness to learn and meet people, and the ability to take whatever opportunity comes and make it into something, then you will succeed just fine no matter where you land. Mm-hmm. It was shocking. I remember the first time when I was in London, I remember the very first time I had to go to work. And I went down to get on the subway, and I watched 2 subways go by because they were too crowded to get on. And I realized after 2 subways went by that I just had to cram my body into that subway, and it was so uncomfortable. I felt, not for so much for me, but I just felt so rude. And I was like, people think I'm a terrible person. I'm pushing them. I'm pushing on, and I'm in their space. And I just realized that's a big city. People, you don't get space. And you just have to make your way and kind of push your way in. Now, when I moved back to Portland, eventually people were like, look, calm down. So there was a little bit of a learning curve coming back. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun traveling around, though.
Well, and that was my follow-up question, is how, like, I've pretty much been in Portland my whole life. Of course, I've traveled and all that, but I've never really fully lived anywhere outside of the metro area. What's it like to come back into the city after being gone? I mean, Portland has changed a lot, but are you finding it easier to bring some of those bigger city experiences back into Portland, or are they jiving at all?
Yeah, I think when mostly you'll have to ask my coworkers if I'm jiving, because they might just tell you that I'm nuts and kind of crazy. But to be honest, I think, a lot of the traits I always had were always there. And when I moved back, I just fell back into it. It took a minute. I think, people's lives move on. I thought I'd move back and I'd just catch up with people. But, people's lives move on. It took me a little while to get back to knowing people and figuring this place out. And but I think the experience, I'm glad and grateful that I get to come back with all the experiences and education I have and do something for Portland now. And I get to be here doing something for this city, and I get to bring those skills and that knowledge right back here. And one of my favorite parts of all of my jobs has been mentoring people and having people that get a chance to learn from me, from what I got to learn from other people. I don't think you get a lot of those experiences sometimes in Portland. But having said that, the quality of life here is really good. And I remember when I moved back from New York City, I drove back. I actually decided I'd never driven across the country, so I was driving back.
Oh,
and by about Nebraska, I thought this was the terrible idea. So it's a terrible idea. But, I made it through, and when I got to the gorge, so when you get to Oregon and you're shooting up east and you finally hit the gorge and you're driving in, and I thought, who would leave here? Who would leave here? And I knew I was home, and it's been great. It's been great.
The only time I've really left, except to go to Ashland, which is, just a suburb of Portland, really. I moved to Yuma for 3 weeks in the middle of December because I was just done with the cold, right? I had friends who were living down there, and I decided I'd go join them. And it was really weird seeing a Christmas tree at 90 degrees outside and everyone, singing Christmas carols when it's, when you're sweating and whatnot. And certainly not the other world. But I was so done with the color green, which is silly, being in the Jade Lounge today. But I didn't realize how little green there was outside of Portland. Everywhere you look, it's just green all the time.
I've always been here.
Okay, so you had mentioned your workplace.
So pick
So
up
let's
a
talk about your
beer
workplace.
and pull up a chair and strike up the
you work
band.
with
It's
the
my
Marty
real
J.
Portland.
The wrong thing. The Michael J. Fox Foundation. Yes.
Yes, I worked with Marty McFly.
Okay. Now I've had this belief since at least Back to the Future, maybe earlier. So, well, I mean, not this part, not before that. So I think Marty McFly is a superhero, right?
Yeah.
And I also think that Michael J. Fox is also.
Yeah.
And they say you should never meet your heroes, but what about meeting a superhero? I think he's probably a good guy to meet.
Oh,
Am I wrong?
he is a great guy to meet. I think he is so smart and he is so witty. And one of the hardest things that's ever happened to me in my whole life was when I worked there and somebody said, you have to write Michael's speech. And I thought, that's terrible. I'm not doing that. There's no way. So, I tried to be witty and I tried to be, I tried to do a good job. When I saw him, he just said, hey, all you got to do is give me the roadmap, and that's it. Don't worry about it. He was cool. He's calm. He's a nice man. And then he got on stage. He read about 5 words of my speech and did his own, and was hilarious and so great, and just really, really thoughtful and and never one time ever said anything but positive things. When he put out the book, Optimist, the book about his optimism, and I was like, yes, that's exactly right. He really is. He's a really optimistic man and a really nice man. And if you met him, you'd love him as much as you love Marty McFly.
Oh, that's so great to hear. I just love that. I hope that one day back in high school, short story, I had this really weird, crazy dream. It was one of those dreams where you wake up and you're like, I need to write all of this down. So I wrote everything about this dream down, and the biggest takeaway was that for some reason in this dream, I played myself as Michael J. Fox.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but so to this day, when I look in the mirror and it's not Michael J. Fox, I'm a little bit disappointed. Okay. So
I think that goes for most people.
okay, so you're now working with the Brian Grant Foundation.
Yeah.
And that seems to combine everything that's just perfect about your experience with Parkinson's from working with Michael J. Fox Foundation, as well as your Public Health Foundation, and also being back in Portland. I mean, it's just this fantastic trifecta of everything about you. So how does that feel to have all of those things kind of come into alignment?
It's awesome. You know, it's really great. I would have never thought when I got that biology degree all those years ago that I'd be working with Michael J. Fox and now Brian Grant. I mean, it's kind of a strangest career path ever. And I often tell people, if I ever write a book, it's gonna be, how did I get here? But it's been really great to see how all these worlds can collide, because I think that's what I love about public health. There's very much a scientific part to it, but there's also all of the social aspects of it as well. And regardless of who you are and where you live and what life you have, every single one of us is going to face some type of illness or have a loved one face some type of illness. And so to see, what people go through with that and the resilience they have and how people deal with things has been probably one of the biggest privileges of my life. And so to be able to be with somebody like Michael J. Fox, who really is doing so much. If they find a cure, it'll be because of the Michael J. Fox Foundation for sure. And then to be able to turn around and work with somebody like Brian Grant, who was diagnosed with this disease at 36, was told he has a movement disorder after 12 years of being in the NBA and being an elite athlete, who said, who kind of just said, there's got to be something better than this. There's got to be something more than just saying pray for a cure. And because of that, and because he had that courage, we're finding there actually is a lot you can do besides just waiting for a cure. And I think that that's opening up so many channels for people that is so hopeful and so inspiring. And so I love the fact that I get to be back in Portland. I love the fact that I get to be with such an inspirational human being, while also combining all the different pieces of science together to do something really meaningful and useful for people. And it's hopeful. And it's so hopeful to be able to say, there is something you can do. And I think to play any small role in that, I can't imagine doing anything more meaningful.
Sure. Well, and I know that the Brian Grant Foundation works with people who are living with Parkinson's, and one of the biggest things that from what I've been able to see is really an emphasis on physical exercise.
Yeah.
And being able to practice using one's own body physically in different ways, which sounds like something that we can, not only can we all be doing, but a very tangible thing that the Brian Grant Foundation can be helping with.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I talk to Brian about it all the time. The things we tell people to do, every human being on earth should do. I mean, that's just the long and short of it. But what we're learning about the brain, without getting too geeky on you, but what we're learning about the brain is that it can actually compensate a lot for losses and what's happening in it with Parkinson's. So when we talk about physical activity, we for sure are talking about exercise that everyone should get to maintain your health, prevent serious illnesses and what have you. But we also are looking at the research that shows how you can teach people types of movements and combine those with different types of activities to help the brain compensate for what is being lost with the disease. So it is very Parkinson's specific as well. And I think that's the part that's so different. I think that's the part that's so new, is to be able to say to people, there are things you can do through movement to stop a movement disorder. And so for me, it's nice because it's also cutting edge, and it's different, and it's hopeful. And like I said, it's been so interesting to work with people who have been told time and time again, there's no cure, here's a prescription, I'll see you back here in a year, and to be able to pick them up and say, actually, there's so much more to your life than that.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Now, I was just watching Brian's TED Talk earlier today. Was that before or after you?
It was when I was working on the board. So it was kind of when I was a board of director, but
that's right.
But before I became the executive director.
It was just fantastic and so filled with messages of hope. How long has the foundation been active, and what's its future? What are you hoping to do with it in the future?
So we started in 2010, and going back to the part where I was telling you that most people get given a prescription and they're told, come back in a year, hope for a cure. Brian went and decided he was going to start a foundation to support research. That's how I met Brian. He called the Michael J. Fox Foundation to say, I want to raise money for you. So in the first year, he was like, I'm going to raise money for you. I was the person in New York City that was like, he's a blazer. So they're like, great, we'll send Katrina to help. And he started out with really wanting to push research and help the research agenda. And like so many other people with Parkinson's, his journey is so similar. Starts out with really wanting a cure, push research, we need research, and then starts to say, but why isn't there anything else? And I think then the foundation kind of went through this period of time where it was just trying to figure out what do we know about this disease? What can you do about it? And today we know. Today we have really good evidence on what works in terms of what you can do. And we are now we brought all of that stuff online so that anyone, anywhere, regardless of where you are in the world, can participate. You can exercise with us online. You can cook with us online. You can learn about this disease. And so I think the big future for us now is taking what we know, taking the programs we've built, and expanding them to at least a national audience, if not an international audience.
That's just fantastic. Right. So you also posted a video talking about all the exercise in front of the Moda Center.
Oh, yeah.
Doing the My 10-10-10 challenge.
Yes.
Which is a great campaign to raise funds and awareness for Parkinson's. Did everyone take you up on the challenge?
No, everyone did not take me up on the challenge, but I will tell you what, it was 10 push-ups, and if you see the video, at about push-up 4, I start laughing because I realize I might not make it. It's actually hard to do 10 push-ups, and looking back, I actually wish I would have just made them easier or something, because I think, a lot of people did take me up on the challenge, and they kind of one-upped me because, of course, they were going to one-up me. But that was, and I'm glad for it, and I'm grateful for it. But it wasn't the point. The point was that anyone, anywhere can participate. You can do push-ups against a wall. You put your knees on the ground. You can do anything. You can do push-ups all kinds of ways. So looking back, I'm like, I wish I would have been a little more honest and at push-up 4 just been like, I'm putting my knees down. I can't do this, and just been okay with it.
But you did 10, and they were fantastic.
Did it. Yes.
You actually,
yes.
Our gym teacher would be proud. Okay, so how can listeners contribute to the Brian Grant Foundation, or otherwise, other than the other things that we've talked about, get more involved?
Yeah. So first and foremost, if you have a loved one or if you have Parkinson's, please go to briangrant.org. You will learn all kinds of things about what to do with the disease, and the earlier you do it, the better your condition will be. Second of all, if you're anybody, come to briangrant.org, because we have tons of events that we do in the Portland area. My favorite is coming up on September 28th. It's called Plates for Parkinson's, and essentially we bring Portland restaurants in to provide samples of menu options that meet our dietary recommendations. So it's food and drinks and music, and Brian's there. We talk a little bit about our nutritional recommendations, but mostly it's just a nice time after work. It's at 6 o'clock in the Pearl. And again, briangrant.org, you can get tickets and come out and eat with us. And I like to eat, so that's why I love that one. That's why I love that one.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, and I had a question here that I didn't even ask. You've got the upcoming Red versus Black.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Yeah, okay. So there's another organization called Maurice Lucas Foundation. Maurice Lucas was on the 1977 championship team, and his son has built an organization that is providing after-school services to underserved youth. A really great organization. And we were just kind of talking one day about how we wanted to do something family-friendly, something to give back to the community, and what could it be? And Nicole, who I work with, was like, well, what do you think about a Brian Grant Foundation versus Maurice Lucas Foundation basketball game? And since I can't play basketball, I was like, great. It sounds great. And so it's coming up this Saturday. It's Saturday, and it's at the new PSG Viking Pavilion. So it's great. It's $10 for tickets. The farmers market will be going on that day too. The basketball game should be a lot of fun. I'm fairly sure we'll win. Sometimes I'm not sure if Brian's just like, don't worry about it, it's just a basketball game. So I believe him because he knows what he's doing, but I don't believe that basketball can be that easy. So we'll see how it goes.
That's great. Anything else that you would like to share with us this evening?
No,
Anything
hey,
else on your
I
mind?
just wanted to say thanks for being here, and it just cracked me up when you mentioned the City Nightclub, because I was like, does anybody else remember the City Nightclub?
Anyone
Yeah,
else
no,
here?
okay,
No? Oh, that's
okay.
hysterical.
Yeah, that was back when the Pearl was the Pearl District, and it was not some place that you wanted to go to unless you were looking for a club.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it was right next to Henry Weinhard's. I mean, it always smelled like hops all around there.
Yep.
And the cops during the early '90s in Portland around gay youth clubs, they were not cool at all. Yeah. Well,
Yep.
and what's funny is, so Lanny Swerdlow, the owner of it, he was friends with my dad. They met at a place called the Center for Rational Thought, just 2 blocks away. At the same, the Center for Rational Thought was this atheist church thing, if you can follow those 2 words together, that met on in the same recording studio where David Douglas' high school band, the Kingsmen, recorded Louie Louie 40 years before we went to school there. I mean, such this small little world that winds up being put back together that actually means that we're not related to each other. Okay, so one more time for Katrina Kahl.
Thank you.
Okay, and that sound means it's time for another Fast Five. Katrina, are you ready for tonight's
I think so.
Fast Five questions? Okay, what's your favorite month to enjoy Portland?
Oh, I'm going to go with September as well. That's a good month.
September in Portland, that should be a song. That should be a song. That should be a song. You write songs too. So Willamette River, just for bridge crossings, or go ahead and jump in?
No, I'm bridge for sure.
Uh-huh. Like, I can't imagine jumping in. Okay. What's your favorite Portland theater to see movies in?
Gosh, that's a hard one, but you know what? I recently have really enjoyed going to the Academy over in Montevilla.
Isn't it great?
That's a great little theater. Yeah.
Do you remember what
$4
that was?
$4.
Do you remember what that was when we were kids? I don't remember.
No, but I think it was the Academy.
Oh, no, wait. That's where the Nicolads was.
Ah, okay.
I just remembered it, just like some weird... Okay.
Yes.
I'm nerding out over here on Portland history. Okay. Great thing about podcasts is those 5 seconds I can just cut out. They never existed. Which of these things do you miss most in Portland? And you might be the only one to actually be able to answer this question tonight. Being able to hike in Eagle Creek in the Gorge. Being able to eat at Machismo Mouse. No one here probably knows what Machismo Mouse is, probably. Being able to shop at the Big Bang. Or the Clyde Drexler era of the Portland Trail Blazers?
Okay, that's hard. Because I definitely miss the Clyde Drexler era of the Blazers, but Eagle Creek is a tough one too. So, but I'm gonna have to go with Eagle Creek. I'll go with Eagle Creek. Yeah.
I mean, me too. I mean, it's just.
Yeah.
Okay, so what show would you watch first? Real Housewives of the Pearl District or MTV's The Real World Shot in Gresham?
Real World Shot in Gresham, for sure.
Right?
Hands down. Yep. Yep.
It feels like home.
Yep. Just because I then see people I know.
I love it. Once more time for Katrina Kahl.
Yeah.
So My Real Portland is brought to you by me, Joseph Lyons, realtor with Cooper Realty. I help home buyers and sellers. Oh, we have a game show first, by the way. I help home buyers and sellers across the Portland metro area make their real dreams become real estate. Learn more about me at josephlyons.com. All right. That sound means it's time for My Real Portland, the game show. So I am looking for 2 people to come up on stage and play the My Real Portland, the game show. I am going to name 4 places or things around Portland that may or may not have existed. And if you know the name, if you know which of the 4 is a fake place, you'll ring in by saying your name.
Okay.
Oh, what's your name, by the way?
I'm Stephanie.
Stephanie, welcome to the show. So that's how you'll ring in. You'll say Stephanie if you know the answer. If you get the answer correct, you'll get 4 points. And if you get the answer wrong, the other person gets to choose, and we'll keep going back and forth like that with a point being reduced as we go along. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a test question. Let's see how you do. I'm going to name these 4 things. You tell me which one did not exist. The Statue of Portlandia, the Pioneer Courthouse Square, Powell's Books, or Rip City Music Hall.
Stephanie?
I didn't know my name.
I thought you had a master's in communication. Stephanie.
The D, the Rip City Music Hall.
That's correct. That never existed. All right. Okay, so now the questions get harder. Here are your first 4. The Matterhorn, Montpelier, Marrakesh, or Monte Carlo.
Can you repeat them?
Sure.
Good one, Stephanie. Repeat. We need
Matterhorn.
repeat.
The Matterhorn, Montpelier, Marrakesh, or Monte Carlo.
Katrina.
Katrina.
I know it's one of 2, but Montpelier.
That's correct.
Yeah!
4 points for Katrina.
Well done.
That was tough.
I know, right? Okay,
Yeah.
and it's only going to get tougher. All right.
Oh, we're gonna sit up here like.
Okay, so here are the next 4. The Hobbit, Jack and Jill's, Red Riding Hood, or The Carnival.
Katrina. Hobbit.
No, the Hobbit was a jazz club at 39th and Holgate.
Okay.
So for 3 points, Stephanie?
Carnival?
Carnival was a restaurant at the foot of the OHSU on Sam Jackson Parkway.
What were the other 2 again?
What's that?
What were the other 2?
The last 2 are Red Riding Hood and Jack and Jill's.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Jack and Jill's.
My grandma worked there in
Oh.
the 50s. It was actually a club at 162nd and Stark, if you can believe that.
Oh
that
my
had
God.
showgirls.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so 3rd question. The Big Bang, the Space Room, the Satellite, or the Milky Way?
Katrina. The Milky Way.
You're correct.
Yeah. The other ones are
Congratulations.
bars.
Okay,
so
so-
yeah.
Katrina, you've got what, 7 points? And Stephanie, you've got 3? Okay, so who has the most points? Katrina. Okay, all right. Here's your 4th one. Esposito's, Dina Cola's, Palermini's, or Scoochie's.
Katrina.
Yeah.
Palermini's.
It was a restaurant at 105th and Halsey, actually.
Oh
Can
my
you believe
gosh.
that? Esposito's, Dina Cola's, or Scoochie's
Dina Cola's.
Oh no.
is a pizza place on Powell. Katrina.
So what was the first one again?
Esposito's or Scoochie's?
I remember Scoochie's. So it's got to be Esposito's.
It's got to be Esposito's. It's Esposito's.
Okay.
Okay, here's your 5th question. A roller coaster at Council Crest, a mall water park at 82nd and Powell, a light rail fully within the boundary of a local high school, or a Ferris wheel on top of Mount Tabor? Which one of those things never existed?
Oh.
Stephanie.
Yeah, you got this. Please.
C, the light rail in the...
That actually existed at our high school.
Yeah.
Our engineering class put it together, strangely enough.
Well
Katrina?
Okay, so what were the choices again?
Okay, so I know that's really awful. I mean,
insider.
she would have known this. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, roller coaster at Council Crest, mall water park at 82nd and Powell, or a Ferris wheel at the top of Mount Tabor?
I know that. Okay, so I'm going to go with A. Was it A?
The roller coaster
Yeah.
at Council Crest? No, that was actually
Okay,
a
then I
thing.
know what it is. Then it's the last one. It's the last one. It's the Ferris wheel Mount Tabor.
That is correct.
Okay.
But the points go to Stephanie, so...
Because I remember the water park in Eastport Plaza.
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine buying your stationery, sporting goods, and then sending your kids down a tube
An
that's
inner
just
tube.
like it was so bizarre.
Yeah.
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 At 82nd and Powell, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. This is Simpsons related. Flanders Street, Van Houten Avenue, Crabapple Street, or Quimby Street.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
C.
Crabapple Street, that's correct. That is so correct. Okay, so this might be a tie almost.
Yeah, I'm good with
I
ties.
haven't been counting, but it sounds like it's a tie to me. Okay, so here's your last one. A movie about robbing a Portland drugstore. A movie about robbing a Portland roller skating rink. A movie about an ice skater named starring Margot Robbie. Or a fun romantic comedy about a Portland podcast host.
I can't remember.
I
one's
know
really
that
easy.
Stephanie.
Yeah.
D.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yes. Okay, but I was going to say that. What was the B? The second one, the roller skiing.
The movie about robbing a Portland roller skating rink.
Yes.
So that's the movie with it's Burt Reynolds and I forget the name. It's not The Hunted. That was 2003. My dad and I went and saw it in the theater. And it's really funny. They actually break into the back of the roller rink at Oaks Park where they have the wavy thing like this and all the kids do that. And that's part of the movie. I mean, it's really bizarre.
Okay, but I'm watching it now.
I mean, it's before Madonna's Body of Evidence. I think it was like 1989. It's hysterical and filmed here. So there's like Corno's food in front of it. It's hysterical.
Nice.
Okay, so
Well done.
who won?
Who knows?
You both won.
We
Okay, so
both
what did you
won.
win?
We both
You
win.
both won your very own My Real Portland, the pint glass.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Love it.
Okay. My next guest is a Portland musician, a theater composer, an avant-garde performer from a small town in Pennsylvania and across the U.S. and Canada. She's performed, and she's called Portland her home for the last 10 years. And in that time, she has composed works for hand-to-mouth's adaptation of Ursula Le Guin's Left Hand of Darkness and multiple works at Portland Center Stage. Jana also scored Note to Self, which was written and directed by a friend and former guest of My Real Portland, Adrian Flagg. So please welcome to the My Real Portland stage, Jana Losey Crenshaw.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that song. I'm so glad you played it. This is a new song for me. That I've been playing out a bunch, but you guys haven't heard it yet. And I'm going to release it in a little bit of time. So I'm going to be 45 in about, I don't know, what's the date? A week? Something like that. And I was talking to a friend, and we were wondering why everyone our age is just so, like, continually messed up. And, like, you guys touched on it a little bit. Like, our generation has this thing. And, like, I'm actually really in love with the millennials because I feel like they sort of, like, took what they had and just, like, ran with it in a lot of really cool ways and just improved on everything. And I feel like we were dealt this hand that was weird because our parents just kind of like hated us the whole time, and it was weird for most of us. And so who knows what happens when you do that, but maybe something like this song, I don't know, for the other Generation Xers out there, I don't know. I am unabashedly 45. I am surprised to still be alive, 'cause we were all latchkey kids, running wild, doing what we did. Then they started the war on drugs, that was really a war on us. And then we were supposed to die at the end of 1999, and so we slept through Y2K. We partied hard and woke up the next day, and the same in 2020.
us have survived cancer. We can go on, we are the adapters. We have the connection. We are the last connection. And we've got time we never knew that we had. Well, they say time flies when you're having fun. Does it crash down when the fun is done? Run, run, run from the illusion. Or have we just run out of time? I am fantastically horrified at what it takes to just stay alive. We work so much more for less, and the planet is such a mess. And then they started this war on terror, which is designed to go on forever, forever and ever. It will go on forever, and we just might be out of time this time. Well, they say time flies when you're having fun. Does it crash down when the fun is done? We run, run, run from the illusion. Or have we just run out of time? Well, they say time flies when you're having fun. Does it crash down when the fun is done? We run, run, run from the illusion. Or have we just run out of time? Or have we just run out of time? I am unabashedly 45. I am surprised to still be alive. Thank you.
Thank you, Jana.
Thank
That
you,
was
Joey.
beautiful. Actually, that song was one of those that I listened to yesterday in preparation of today, and I listened to it about 5 times
Oh, good.
because there are things in there that I just love. First of all, major brownie points for being able to. Oh, somebody's coming. Come on in. Major brownie points for rhyming "run" with illusion.
Oh, hey, thanks. Those are my favorite kind of brownie points.
I mean, when I heard that, I was like, no, that's not supposed to work. But then you make it work, and I just love it. And there's something else in the song that I really love: the contrast between the first and the second verse.
Yeah, it kind of goes south, doesn't it?
It does, and it takes me off guard because it's so hopeful. And I remembered thinking after I really listened to it, and I listened to the lyrics of the first verse, I was like, yes, I love this music. And then it got to the second verse just right after that, and I was like, wait a minute, what happened? It made me so sad.
It's what I do.
So
It's my gift.
I just turned
And my
44.
curse.
What's different between 44 and 45?
Nothing.
Yeah, right?
Nothing at all.
Is there anything different between 45 and 15?
Yes, probably a lot. Although I don't know, it kind of depends who you are, right? I think I was this brooding adult the whole time. I didn't find myself until last year. and then I was like, oh, I get it now.
Okay, but you've been creating for decades.
Right?
And
Isn't that weird?
and yet you still feel that you've just found yourself.
Yeah.
That surprises me. It seems like art would have given you the opportunity to have found, especially the kind of art you do, where you create your own pieces of music and whatnot. It seems like that would be a lot more informative than maybe another person might get about themselves.
It seems that way, but I think like if you, I don't know. I don't know how it is for other people who have the same kind of trajectory, but I think if you're me, you sort of look back and go like, oh, that wasn't quite right. and you just keep doing that until you're like, oh, maybe I've finally arrived at something that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I don't know. I've had that feeling at other times, like with other singular projects, but I sort of have that feeling on a more holistic level at this point in my life, right?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, so like I feel like I've arrived at this place where like somebody asks me to do something that I don't know how to do, but I'm like, sure, I can do that, and I actually pull it off. Whereas before I was, like I may have done it, but I didn't quite do it, and it's still uncomfortable, and I still think it's good to sort of stretch yourself creatively, etc. But I feel like, there's enough history that I have with myself and with my art that I can actually do things I couldn't do before. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, and so one of the things that you started off doing, I know that you, in the 90s, you were an avant-garde performer. So what kinds of things were you not doing as an avant-garde performer? Because that seems like that would give you every single possibility.
It seems that way.
But now you're finding more opportunity maybe within a narrower scope. I'm not sure.
And I think that's exactly it. It's sort of like, that trajectory was, I don't know, like I'm still really good at those skills that I used to do that, right? But I think like I can use them more now to sort of get across things that are actually me, rather than sort of responding as part of a group to a series of situations where you're forced into writing something that you, which is like a really good exercise, right? If I say to you, okay, so you have to write this play. I just did this for Adrian. Adrian will like this. You have to write this play. I know you've never written a play before. However, we're going to do this camp for kids, and you're going to write a play based on Nordic mythology, which I know you know nothing about, but you can read books, and it'll be fine. And so write a play, which I know you've never done before, and have it be about 10 pages, which is about 10 minutes, for kids anywhere from 7 to 18. So go and do that. And, it's sort of like, avant-garde stuff is sort of that way, right? Like you have these bizarre parameters that you wrestle with, and you come up with something that's cool or terrible or whatever, but you just kind of do it as an exercise.
Sure.
And I feel like along the way that was an exercise for me, and now I can sort of like handle it.
Uh-huh.
Like I can, like the piece that I wrote for Adrian's camp was kind of the bomb.
Was
and
it?
Yeah, and before I would have just been like, this is terrible, but here it is.
But I made something here, please look at it.
What you asked me to do, I did. And now I'm kind of like, I wrote this piece. It's kind of awesome.
Yeah.
And people agree with me, which is also
which
interesting.
Is also really fun.
Yeah.
Well, and I, like I said, I wrote a musical theater piece back in 1991 with Matt Bronger back when I was 17.
Yeah.
And we had worked with all sorts of musicians and writers and producers to help us kind of hone that. And it's a really important skill to have, somebody like you to be able to translate that for the younger generation. So as you're talking about millennials and the younger generations, you're right there to help form them.
My husband and I have taken on this project where we write a musical for third graders that sort of debunks history. We should come on and talk about that because it's pretty good.
Well, now,
but we did it, and it's the same kind of like challenge, sort of like those physical challenges that people do where they like. What's that thing called? The gladiator, all that gladiator stuff. Like it's sort of like the things
like
that I do.
Challenge
the
kind
things
of
that I do now are sort of like the musical version of that, where like somebody goes like, "Hey, so come and write a play that's like this. It has these words in it, and this has to happen in 10 minutes, and it's this many pages, and you have kids that are this." And I'm like, okay, and I kind of am like. And then I get to sort of like design what the course looks like, right?
Right. So, well, and then talking about other things you've designed, what was it like doing music for the staged adaptation of an Ursula Le Guin?
Oh my God, it was amazing.
Project.
They let me do like a lot of stuff that was really fun.
Like what kind of stuff
Well,
were you working on?
Hand to mouth is collaborative theater in general, and they make like that's the only time they've ever worked with a script. So they're kind of devised theater oriented, and so it felt like a really good match. Like the way that they work and the way that I work seemed really similar and familiar to me. And so I would kind of go to rehearsals, and that was one of the first shows that I did, and they let me really do a lot. So like what I feel like I can do with theater, especially because I'm really familiar with that as a medium, is like I can design your theater piece and make it sound like a film while you do that. And it's not really the way sound is used in theater very much.
Right.
But I feel like that's my like thing that I like to do, right? So like I'll kind of like write these pieces, but what I do is write all these billion loops that fit together so that I can bring them in and out whenever I want. And so I can sort of like write a piece and then write a piece again once we get it in the theater and staged. And so it's cool because I've kind of developed a system, and my best friend gets me most of my work. And she's her name's Casey, and she's the sound supervisor at Portland Center Stage.
Oh,
and so
wow.
she and I work together like this, and we've worked together. She was in that weird avant-garde thing that you saw me do. And so we've been working together that long, which is like oddly almost 30 years
Oh
ago.
my God.
And so
wow.
it's like we don't really talk. I just go like, okay, so this thing, and she goes, yeah, okay, yeah, just do it. Go, okay, rolling, and then and then I just play, and that's kind of how we communicate when we're in the studio.
So what's that experience compared to when you're working with your husband?
I don't get to work with Mike as much. Like
But there's so much that you've done together.
No, it's true, but
if you
but
search
it's so
Jana and Mike Crenshaw,
yeah.
there's all of this stuff that they've done together. Your husband's work is amazing.
It's true. But he usually comes to me and says, like, I need a hook on this thing. Can you do it? And I go, I don't know. Let me listen. And then 2 days after, I go like, well, I have this. Do you like it? And he goes, yeah. That's awesome. Can you come on Thursday to the studio at 3? And I go, no, I can't. How about Saturday?
So this sounds a lot less collaborative than working with your best friend at Handcraft.
Yeah, no, it's true. But I mean, it's like it's like Casey, what Casey does is sound design, and what I do is composition, right? Like two halves of the same whole if you're working in theater.
Right.
So like, me making a hook and like, I'm amazed at the way that Mike works, right? It's like, people send him these like genius songs that are already put together in some capacity, even if they're not completely like vetted as a song. It's like this full sounding awesome beat, and he just like writes to it. And and I'm like, I have to make the whole song. So it's slower. and he just writes constantly. And so if he comes up with some little spot that he's like, I need something, this is getting, like this, like we need a different dynamic or whatever, he'll ask me. But that's kind of how we work together, and we don't get to do that as much. So, and it's not like a whole piece, it's just like a song here and there.
One song, and you're just in that little bit. Yeah. So what projects are you working on next?
I am working on new music, one of which you just heard. But I also am re-releasing, so the last time I did music full time, Facebook had just started. So I've never had a real online life as a musician. And so I'm trying to get some of that back by re-releasing what I like to call my greatest hits, which is my 3 albums that I've made that nobody really heard too much, compressed into like a best of, I think, 11 songs or 12 songs or something like that. And it's coming out pretty soon. Like I'm working with a cool company who's like a distribution kind of thing, and so they'll kind of do all of that. But I just had new headshots taken because my other headshots were really amazing, but still kind of like 5 years ago, and I was like, somehow I don't feel good about that. It feels like a misrepresentation of some sort.
If I could
don't
still
know
use
why.
my college headshots,
I mean,
I would. I'm
people
so
do
young
it.
and cute, and I had hair.
People do it. People do it all the time, and it's fine. But I'm like, it doesn't feel like the right vibe, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay, so so people can follow you now on Facebook, though?
Yeah, Jana Crenshaw, and I'm janacrenshaw.com. And
Great.
I also I've only just launched a Twitter and Instagram, so I think I'm just at Jana Crenshaw, but I don't know. I think my Twitter is at Jana Crenshaw Music, and the thing I'm excited about is what I decided to do with my Twitter thing is a thing, which is cool, I think, which is just to Twitter a couple lines of a lyric and then link to the song, so that if you're like, oh my God, I love that, then you can just actually do the thing and listen to the song. And so that's all I'm going to do with my Twitter, and I'm not very witty or funny or anything else, and so I thought, well, I can do that. And I haven't figured out like a shtick for my Instagram quite yet, but I'd like to do that. And I have all these other things too that the distribution people were like, you need this. I'm also on like SoundCloud and all the other places.
Bandcamp.
Yeah. I have that too.
All
the other
places where
things
you
I've
have to
forgotten.
Yeah. We're all told that we have to have 19,000 social media.
Yeah,
lives,
but I'm doing
and
it. I'm trying to like do the thing. So even though the thing hasn't been like completely released, you can follow me now, and I would A, super appreciate it, and B, you'll actually know when the thing is like happening.
That's
so
really fantastic.
yeah,
And when it
the
comes
song
out,
that
I'll
I
reshare
the
it on
song
my
that I
report
played
one
with
too.
for you is actually new, and I'm still working on it in the studio. So the album will drop, I don't know when, maybe in the next month even, hopefully. And then hopefully, the idea is like do that part and get people some music that they haven't heard, and then hopefully release the new thing that I'm super excited about to a slightly larger audience.
Very
So,
cool.
yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you ready for tonight's final Fast Five?
Yes.
All right. Let's do the excuse me. Thanks. I can edit this all in. Okay, that sound means it's time for tonight's final 5 questions. Are you ready for tonight's final Fast Five?
I think so.
All right. What's your favorite month to enjoy Portland?
It's sort of a toss-up. I think I'm going to go with March.
Curious move.
Thank you.
What is it about March?
It's like sometimes the rain stops. It's always when I'm expecting spring to come, and it sort of does here. But when I lived on the East Coast, it was like you were just like, oh, I must have some kind of relief, and it just sort of like never came.
Mm-hmm.
And here I feel like it's like, oh, it's going to be okay. And I appreciate that because it's like sometimes timely. And that's when I need that to happen.
Right.
And it's important.
Like the third week of February, I think, is the worst. But because it's so bad, once you get into March, you're like, oh, we're in March already.
Yeah,
right?
That's how I feel.
Willamette River, just for bridge crossings, or go ahead and jump in?
Just bridge.
So no one's jumping into the Willamette.
No, thanks.
What's your favorite Portland theater to see movies in?
I live in North Portland, and I pretty much realized the other day, in the past, I don't know, couple of years, I only see movies at the St. John's Theater or McMinimans, right?
Right.
Isn't that where you go? Because if I can't eat pizza and drink beer and like be in a seat that's a seat. It's like, no.
Yeah. And my mom loves St. John's Theater. I mean, that's
I'm
where
not
she took
gonna,
my
I won't do
grandson
that.
all the time. Yeah,
Yeah.
her grandson. And also, by the way, always better to support your local businesses, just
And
like we are
that.
here.
Yeah.
So which one of these things do you miss most about Portland? You might have a challenging time with this. Okay, so being able to hike Eagle Creek in the Gorge. Have you ever done that?
I think so. But that's the only one that I
The only one of these?
recognized.
Okay.
Yeah.
So being able to eat machismo mouths, which
Yeah.
was a really kind of weird, odd-tasting Mexican food chain that we had here
Oh,
in the
hey.
90s. Yeah, odd-tasting is right. Being able to shop at the Big Bang. So the Big Bang was this, like, clothing and variety store that was, like, the coolest and most odd place to shop. You would have loved it, I know.
I think I almost remember that. I've been
Yeah.
here like 10 years.
It may have closed, like, right up as you were...
Yeah.
As you got here. Okay. Or the Clyde Drexler era of the Portland Trail Blazers.
Yeah, I'm like not a sports person,
I don't understand
unfortunately.
how somebody cannot... Like, wasn't the
sorry.
whole nation into this? That's why we're called Rip City, for
no,
crying out loud.
I just still don't know what that means. I'm sorry.
I don't know what Rip City means either. Do
See?
you, Katrina?
See?
Shouted it out in like the 70s and it just stuck.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a really literal 8-year-old who's like, why does that building say Rip City? What does that mean? And I'm like, I legitimately don't know. And there's not really a way to look it up. Like, you can sort of look it up on the internet, but it's still not going to make a whole lot of sense.
You'll never know. Like, you'll never know what it means to wake
that-
up to Tom Peterson, right?
Well, or to that guy who said that in the moment. Like,
every moment. But yeah.
who knows?
I mean, it's hysterical. Okay, so which would you rather watch first? Real Housewives of the Pearl District or MTV's The Real World shot in Gresham?
Super Gresham.
Super. So no one wants to see
No,
a bunch of
no.
Housewives in the Pearl.
I mean, no.
No.
I know those people. They're cool. Like, I have some friends that are those people, but it wouldn't make an interesting show.
Those people? Oh my
It just
gosh.
wouldn't. Like,
I love it.
I love them, but I don't want to see
love
that.
practicing reverse classism. Nothing. Hell, I mean, yeah. Okay, so you feel good about tonight's Fast Five? You
I
got a
do.
couple more songs in you?
I can, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jana Crenshaw.
At the center of town is a hole, like a catcher of dreams. Weaving through webs to the dreamer, it chews them all up instead. And I don't know which way I should turn, and I don't know what you've heard about me. Could be anything. At the center of my heart is a hole, like the eye of a storm. Every other thing's spinning around, but the heart is still and calm and warm. And I don't know how I should feel, and I think that you're feeling the same. This could be something. And I tend to resist love, even though I insist that love is the greatest thing. Love is everything. Love, 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 all our songs are about you. You're all that we know, we can't live without you. Love, love. I am enjoying watching your life and times, how it differs from mine. Oh, how we've grown, how we have aged like grapes on a vine, crying our way through the crying in hopes to feel fine, fine, fine. respectively. Defectively, we grew close too fast, and I was not surprised to find my heart in my hands. This could be something. I tend to resist love, even though I insist that love is the greatest thing. Love is everything. Love, 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 all our songs are about you. You're all that we know, we can't live without you. Love. And I tend to resist love, even though I insist that love is the greatest thing. Love is everything. Oh, love, 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 all our songs are about you. You're all that we know, we can't live without you. Love, love. At the center of my heart is a hole, like the eye of a storm. Every other thing's spinning around, but the heart is still and calm and warm. Thank you. I'll do this. This is sort of a start of a song cycle that I think will end up being maybe 3 songs. That's all kind of based on these. I grew up in a really small town in Pennsylvania, and my grandpa said a lot of really funny things. Like, I think my favorite thing he ever said was we were having tea, and he said his friend had got a new lawnmower or something, and he said, "Boy, I'll tell you, Jana, that thing could go clear to hell, thrashing rats." And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Clear to hell, it could go clear to hell, thrashing rats. And I kind of was like, okay. And I walked away kind of like, what the fuck does that mean? And I thought about it for 3 days, and I realized, like, I mean, I drove a tractor, like, a little bit when I was a kid, but I realized that when you're a farmer, you know what it's like in machinery. If you're driving machinery, you know what it feels like to run over a rat. Like, you know, that's like you know what that feels like in your body, in the cab when you're driving, because it happens a lot. And so even if you had to drive clear to hell running over rats, you could still get there in a really awesome machine. So it's really just like, this machine is really awesome. But boy, I'll tell you, that thing could go clear to hell, thrashing rats. Anyway, this is not that song. I have no idea how to write that song, but I'm working on it. And this one is called Spin You a Yarn, which where I come from means I'm going to tell you a story. Maybe I'm messing with you. Maybe I'm telling you the truth. You be the judge, right? So. If I spin you a yarn, would you knit me a sweater, keep me warm, and wrap me in words to help me feel better, 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 better now? Better, 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 better now. If I spin you a yarn, would it be a tall tale about a tall gal with a sailboat and a plan to feel better, 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 better now? Better, 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 better now. if I spin you a yarn? Would you know what I mean? I mean, I would tell you some of all I have seen. If I spin you a yarn, would it be a love song this time? The story of ours all written in rhyme? And would it sound like a fishtail of big as a great whale? Would it tell of our loving, living, loving, living, loving now? Loving, living, loving, living, loving now. If I spin you a yarn, would you know what I mean? I mean, I would tell you some of all I have seen. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Hey, if I spin you a yarn, would you knit me a sweater, keep me warm, and wrap me in words to help me feel better, 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 better now? Better, 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 better now. To help me feel better, 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 better now. Better, 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 better now. Thank you.
Jana, that was beautiful. One more time for Jana Losey Crenshaw. And one more time for my other guests, Katie Nguyen and Katrina Kahl. And thank you to the Jade Lounge. You've been a great audience. And remember, our next show is going to be right here at 23rd and Ankeny on September 11th at 7 p.m. Happy hour is at 6:30, so get here early. Good night.